The history of the United States is a rich tapestry woven from the diverse experiences of its indigenous peoples, the transformative impact of European colonization, the fervor of revolutionary ideals, the complexities of territorial expansion, the trials of civil conflict, and the ongoing pursuit of a more just and equitable society. This narrative spans millennia, from the earliest inhabitants of North America to the multifaceted nation that exists today. Indigenous foundations long before European explorers set foot on the continent, North America was home to a vast array of indigenous cultures. Archaeological evidence suggests that the first inhabitants arrived over 15,000 years ago, migrating from Asia via the Bering Land Bridge. These early settlers developed into numerous distinct societies, each uniquely adapted to their environments. In the arid southwest, the ancestral Puebloans, also known as the Anasazi, constructed intricate cliff dwellings and developed advanced agricultural techniques. The Mississippian culture, flourishing in the Midwest and Southeast, built impressive earthen mounds and established extensive trade networks. Along the Pacific Northwest, tribes such as the Haida and Tlingit thrived on abundant marine resources, creating complex social structures and rich artistic traditions. These societies were not monolithic. They encompassed a wide range of languages, religions, and governance systems. Their histories, rich with oral traditions, art, and communal knowledge, laid the foundational cultural landscape of what would become the United States. European exploration and colonization. The late 15th and early 16th centuries marked the beginning of European exploration in the Americas. Christopher Columbus's 1492 voyage, though primarily impacting the Caribbean, opened the door for further expeditions. Spanish explorers, such as Juan Ponce de León and Hernando de Soto, ventured into parts of present-day Florida and the southeastern United States, seeking wealth and territorial claims. The French established their presence along the St. Lawrence River, with Samuel de Champlain founding Quebec in 1608. They engaged in fur trading and built alliances with various indigenous groups, notably the Huron. The Dutch, aiming to capitalize on trade opportunities, founded New Amsterdam on Manhattan Island in 1625, which later became New York under British control. The English, however, would come to establish the most influential and populous colonies. The founding of Jamestown in 1607 marked the beginning of permanent English settlement. Despite early struggles with disease, famine, and conflicts with indigenous peoples, the colony eventually found economic viability through tobacco cultivation. The Pilgrims' arrival aboard the Mayflower in 1620 led to the establishment of Plymouth Colony, rooted in a quest for religious freedom. Throughout the 17th and early 18th centuries, 13 distinct colonies developed along the eastern seaboard. Each had its own economic base, religious practices, and governance structures. The New England colonies, with their Puritan foundations, focused on community and religious conformity. The Middle colonies, characterized by greater diversity, became hubs of commerce and agriculture. The Southern colonies relied heavily on plantation economies, cultivating cash crops like tobacco, rice, and indigo, which led to the entrenchment of chattel slavery as a labor system. Path to independence. By the mid-18th century, the British colonies had grown both in population and economic strength. However, the conclusion of the French and Indian War in 1763 left Britain with substantial debt, prompting the Crown to levy taxes on the colonies, such as the Stamp Act of 1765 and the Townshend Acts of 1767. These impositions, made without colonial representation in Parliament, sparked growing resentment. Tensions escalated with events like the Boston Massacre in 1770 and the Boston Tea Party in 1773, where colonists protested against taxation by destroying a shipment of tea. In response, Britain enacted the Coercive Acts, further restricting colonial autonomy. Delegates from the colonies convened the First Continental Congress in 1774 to coordinate a response, leading to the formation of local militias. The first military engagements of the Revolutionary War occurred in April 1775 at Lexington and Concord. As hostilities grew, the Second Continental Congress appointed George Washington as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. On July 4, 1776, the Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, primarily authored by Thomas Jefferson, proclaiming the colony's separation from Britain and outlining principles of individual rights and government by consent. The war continued until 1783, with significant battles at Saratoga and Yorktown. The latter saw British General Cornwallis's surrender, effectively ending major combat operations. The Treaty of Paris, signed in 1783, recognized the sovereignty of the United States over territory stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River. Forming a new nation in the aftermath of independence, the United States faced the challenge of unifying 13 sovereign states under a central authority. The initial governing document, the Articles of Confederation, proved inadequate due to its lack of federal power to tax or regulate commerce. Recognizing these weaknesses, delegates convened the Constitutional Convention in 1787. The resulting U.S. Constitution established a federal system with a separation of powers among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. To address concerns over individual liberties, the first 10 amendments, known as the Bill of Rights, were ratified in 1791. George Washington was unanimously elected as the first president, setting precedents for the executive office. During Washington's tenure, key developments included the establishment of a national bank under Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton and the assertion of federal authority during the Whiskey Rebellion. Political factions emerged, with Federalists advocating for strong central governance and Democratic Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson, promoting states' rights and agrarian interests. Expansion and conflict. The early 19th century was marked by rapid territorial expansion. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803, negotiated under President